9 o'clock. Welcome to the final day of our provincial week. It's good to see that we all made it in one piece. It's been a hectic week. Lots of information which we need to go and assimilate and process. This morning we will be doing the impact of disasters on our infrastructure and how that influences the provincial budget and how the province deals with the impact of those disasters. I'd like to, just as part of the welcoming, you're welcome to, while the briefing is on, if you want to use the bathrooms, there's the ladies is on the right-hand side outside the door and the gents is on the left, I believe. So the program for this morning, just again, we will be doing the briefing and then it should take us up to 12 o'clock, depending on how many questions we have afterwards. We'll go to the NCOP for lunch and come back, I believe, to this room for the debriefing this afternoon. And then that's it. I believe the question session to the Vice President has been postponed for this evening. So that's it. Right, can we just introduce ourselves? So my name is Rikus Baardhorst, Western Cape Permanent Delegate, Democratic Alliance.
Good morning, Nicholas Gotzel, Western Cape Permanent Delegate, PA.
Good morning, I'm Paul Swart, Western Cape Delegate.
Good morning, Matilda Baines, Permanent Delegate, Western Cape ANC.
Good morning, I'm Virgil Gericke, Permanent Delegate, EFF. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Bino Farmer, Permanent Delegate of the Western Cape.
Good morning, Chair. Johan Mini, City of Cape Town Disaster Management, asked by Alderman Smith to be here. Thank you.
Morning all, my name is Asni November from Department of Infrastructure.
I didn't get your name?
Asni November.
Asni. Thank you very much. And good morning to our members on Teams. It looks like Sandile, you on Teams? From the City of Cape Town. So good morning and welcome to you. If you need to ask any questions or make comments, just put up your hand and we'll acknowledge you on the virtual platform. We received apologies from our legislature colleagues. They are in a house sitting today, so they won't be joining us. Minister Simmers also made apologies. He's being sworn in as the acting premier in the next hour, so he won't be joining us this morning. And then I'll just beg your apologies. I'll be leaving the meeting at 9:40 for a quick radio interview about Provincial Week. Honourable Godsell will take care of the chair of the meeting while I'm out. I shouldn't be too long. Right, let's start. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Like I said, I'm Asni November. I'm from the Department of Infrastructure, more focusing on transport infrastructure. So just from a contents and the points of discussion that we're going to discuss today is going to focus on road infrastructure within the Western Cape, talking about the floods and the strategies that we as a department are using to circumvent some of the flood damage on the infrastructure that was experienced.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Members, we're just using one pack, the thick one.
So
the one that says flood damage road infrastructure.
So I'm just referring to this one, is a thicker one.
Yeah. Okay, so if you want to follow on your packs, it's the thicker one. Thanks.
Problem. So in terms of road infrastructure in the Western Cape, I just thought of telling a story. So the department has 32,000 kilometers of proclaimed roads. That's surfaced and gravel roads. From that, we manage 17,500. The rest is minor roads, and that's part of the network, but that does get maintained as well. And of that 17,000, 10,000 is gravel and 7,000 is paved roads. Now, every year we do a road asset management plan just to assess the condition, what's your assets, the the usage demand, and also trying to determine what maintenance needs and budgets that we require to actually maintain the network. So I want to paint a picture of you have your current assets that you maintain, and also how the floods actually affect the department in certain circumstances. Now, when we do the maintenance need on the network, we're trying to determine what money do we require to bring it up to a certain standard. And the maintenance backlog that we currently have is 34 billion, and that includes roads that we must rehabilitate, roads that we must reseal, the regraveling of those roads. And with the money that we get every year, it's close to 3 to 4 billion. So you must try and maintain and prioritize what is required while your maintenance backlog increases with time, because with deterioration on the road network, things deteriorate. And with the money that you have, you try and do the best possible. Now, this maintenance backlog doesn't take into account any new infrastructure, which is, I would say, also cost in the billions, where we want to do capacity improvements to release, I would say, some of the traffic on the road network, considering that Cape Town is one of the congested cities in, I would say, in Africa or South Africa. Now, this maintenance is done either by private contractors, which will go on appointing a consultant and a contractor to implement some of these works. And the other co-sourcing model that we have is through our district municipalities. So we've got 5 district municipalities that we have a memorandum of agreement, and they also maintain and assist us in maintaining the network. In the context of a flood, now, when a flood happens, it's a disaster that is happening, and I consider it more like a life shock. Now, we do our operational things, and every one of us have I want to make it in more layman's term. Every one of us have a car, and we do operational things, taking our kids to school and traveling to work. Replacing a battery and a tire is relatively easy, because then you can still do your operational things. But if a part in your engine breaks, it means you have to reprioritize many of your other things in order to actually take your kids to school. I consider that in a roads perspective. We do our normal maintenance, but if something happens, it pushes out some of operational things, because we have to make roads safe for the public. We have to close roads. So I just want to have that context in that you must have in your mind, that we treat the floods more of a life shock, because it basically, I wouldn't say destabilizes what we do on a normal basis. Now, over the past 2 financial years, we suffered damages up to 1.8 billion. And that's, I would say, throughout the network. This type of damages is either road sections that have washed away, undermining of roads. One of the projects that I will talk about later is Clarence Drive, which is a scenic route alternative to the N2 that suffered, I would say, 80 million rand worth of damages from slip failures, but I'll go into that just to give the magnitude of the type of damages that we received. And in most cases, when a flood does happen, it's our own, I would want to say, DRE, so that's our regional offices and our district municipalities that will be first on call to make sure that the roads are safe, closing some of those roads, removing some of the trees that either have fallen down or the roads that have washed away, to keep that up to date so that we can inform the public on a regular basis. This project, I would say, this picture over here just relates to a road between Caledon and Sandbay. We are busy rehabilitating that. The project was a rehabilitation and a reseal. So it's a new surfacing and a strengthening of the pavement. But during, I would want to say, 2020, the financial year 2023, certain sections of that failed and washed away. Now, that does cause impact, because it was a road that we wanted to finish. Now, there's certain sections that must be repaired. And we must now try and find when are we going to actually repair those sections in the network. So when a flood happens, then it's the news lines that will show something must be done, but the maintenance of that is long term. You have a constrained budget, but you can't immediately action the repair work on that because there's other needs that we actually have to do. So one has to take the 1.8 billion and try and prioritize that in order to maintain it. This year we did receive 350 million to maintain some of it, but we will need more additionally every year to actually maintain that sections of the network. Now, when it comes to floods, our own regional teams and our district municipalities have prepared themselves. So while we in our home beds during the cold winters, they're out there to make sure that the roads are safe, so that they do on a continuous basis. So yes, we've experienced over the past 3 years, but we have protocols in place to ensure that I would say some of the roads are safe and closed for the public. Now, the following slide is just, I just wanted to talk about two scenarios. One is being done by a private contractor, and one is being done by our own in-house design and construction team. This picture is just the repair work of Clarence Drive, which is a scenic route alternative to the N2. It's a 13-month contract. The contract value is 80 million. And I'll just be speaking on some of the damages on this road network on the specific section, just to show you the magnitude. There was lots of damage on the network, but this just depicts, I would say, the severity of what occurred. And so this road it follows the path of the coastal route. So when it rained, majority of, or some of the sections, you either had debris from the top falling down on the network, closing it, and you also had undermining that's basically cutting into the road network. As you can see there's undermining just next to the road, so it becomes unstable, and we actually have to repair that from the bottom upwards. So on the next picture, it just shows you have to go quite far down and actually build your layers up. So stabilize that to ensure that that cars and vehicles can actually ride in it. So it requires, I would say, traffic accommodation. So you will have one-way traffic on those type of sections. So that just shows you how deep it's down there. The rest of the slide also shows some of the other failures and the water that continues to run during that process. And then this slide just shows the progress that we're doing today. So what one has to do, you have to bench down, put in soil anchors, and once you put the next layer, you put the next layer, you put in more soil anchors. So you're just trying to stabilize that section of the road in order to ensure that it's brought back to the proper standard in terms of the width. This is just showing where we are. I think we're now 8 months in construction. So the final things will just be your gabion boxes that you will put on to ensure stabilization. And that's just another picture that I thought worthwhile showing of where we are to date. Now, the following project is in the Cederberg region, and it's more focusing on Citrusdal. As many of you heard that Citrusdal was cut off. It does have 4 accesses to, I would say, to the town. The major one is from the N7 going into Citrusdal. We also have one from, I would say, Ceres from the mountainside, and Algeria. Now, when it rained, many of these roads overtopped, and a section this year also washed away. Now, I just want you to bring your attention to the following image. Just take note of that yellow dot over there. I just want you to remember that yellow dot as I'm about to explain what has transpired through the severe rains and flooding. Now, one of the major problems of why this road washed away, it was due to the river banks that broke upstream. In the past, the river banks used to be maintained by, I would say, the association, I would say the water association, but that's the farmers that have to keep on clearing those dead river banks. Unfortunately, over the past 2 years and the intensity of the rain, it broke upstream. So our road follows a path, I would say, and there is a bridge which takes into account water that will come through the riverbanks, and the water will go under the bridge. But if the riverbank breaks upstream, it follows a different path, and which would not cater for any of the stormwater that should come there because they must follow the riverbank. So that was one of the big reasons why that section of road that washed away. And it's basically, and what I want to advocate is, it's some of the damages are natural, but some of the damages are also done due to not maintenance upstream by other, I would want to say, entities that's not necessarily the Department of Transport and Infrastructure. So just to give context, in 2023, there was a section that washed away. We then done our own, so as a department, we have in-house designs, and we use the district municipality and our own regional office to actually maintain that specific section. So I would say at the start of June 2023, it washed away. We then ensured we done maintenance and done the construction. The first person that walked over that road was in the 23rd of June. And the first vehicle that drove was the 24th of June. So it was a gravel surface, but after that we then put I would say, asphalt surface on it, and the construction was done in the 14th of October 2023. This year, however, started to rain again. I would say in May and June, we were comfortable that everything was still going fine. But as the rain continued, and that yellow dot that I mentioned over there is where the petrol station was. That's how high the water level actually increased. So yes, the water was overtopping over the road, and I would want to say end of June, that's when the second section actually washed away. So not the same section that washed away, it's a section that is just adjacent to that damaged. But during this time, it's very difficult to assess what the damages were, because you actually have to wait for water to subside to actually see what's actually there. The section of road has washed away. We currently we had to reprioritize some of the work that we planned for this year within the West Coast region to actually accommodate this repair, because it is, as a department, you must ensure access, and this is one of the major access to Citrusdal. So some of our projects had to be reprioritized to actually repair this road that washed away. So we currently in construction. I would probably I'd want to say 60% there with regards to your pavement layers. So when this type of thing happens and a road section washed away, you would put rockfill first down to get stabilization, and then you will build up your pavement layers in order to ensure that there's a asphalt surfacing that's going to come at the end of the day. So the following pictures are just current updates of what's happening on the network. So you will just see rockfill being placed, and we'll put gravel layers. So you will do it half with construction, and to ensure that at least someone can ride on the gravel road network. Now, in terms of the impacts of the floods, when a flood does occur, it does cause there is a safety concern. So as a department, we have to ensure that roads are closed. If there are roads that are closed, we have to wait for the water to subside and then assess what the damages are. Currently, we are assessing, I would say, the network. We're trying to package it into how we're going to repair this over time. and that we're working, I would say, with the asset management team and our construction team of how we're actually going to implement this over time.
I'm just going to interrupt you.
Yep.
When you refer to the road,
Yes.
just tell the members which road it is, the
Oh.
name of the road, so
Oh.
we can follow.
Okay, so
Thanks.
with respect to the one in Citrusdal or general? Or,
Every time you refer to
okay, so the one in Citrusdal was Main Road 310, which it's according from on our network, that's how we number our roads. Yes, on the map you will have a different regional number. I'm not so sure what the regional number is, but I will do that in future. So June and September from 2023 to 2024 did have a major impact on, I would say, our road network in general, be it from a design perspective, construction perspective, and a maintenance perspective. It does require the department to, I would say, from a climate change resilience. So what do we have to do extra to ensure that these type of things don't happen in future? So when it comes to our periodic maintenance projects, we would have to ensure that there's, I would say, a little bit more erosion protection at some of our major structures, but that will take scientific calculation into account to make sure that we're doing the right thing there. Then various roads of the network were closed, and we had to reallocate some of our projects that we planned for the financial year. So when I would say a disaster happens on the road network, many of your projects that you've planned to do and is in design, I would say, detailed design stage and ready to go to tender, you will have to put that on hold. The stuff that's in construction, you can't stop because you are committed to finish that specific project. If you stop a project, that's the commitment of the contractor that also wants to finish the project. So you have to be very mindful of what projects you have to stop and what has to continue. So there was a few projects that we had to stop for the past 2 financial years so that we can actually ensure access to some of the critical aspects of the network. Thank you very much. And then, so when, as a department, you get money every year. So if we do get budget cuts, it does influence us as a department to repair this 1.8 billion worth of damages. So you would get the public, I would say, frustrations in order to ask when you're going to actually fix it. So it's very important as a department to say, look, we are in the process of, but it's not going to be immediate. Some of these things are not, I would say, are quite complex in nature. And I spoke about one of the projects that we were busy in construction. And now there's certain sections that are damaged, but we cannot fix it immediately because we kind of need the funding to fix that. So you've got the one contractor that will finish his work, but then the next contract will only probably happen next year. So you get that the perspective of the public. A road is a road, and they want it fixed. So those type of things does creep in that context. So just from the strategies to circumvent some of the flood some of the flood damage, as a department, we have to take note that climate change is real and it does influence certain parts of the road network. One has to be more mindful of being, I would say, climate change resilient, and where applicable to that type of infrastructure. I think it was one of the projects that was in Ashton Montague, which was the Ashton Bridge. There was a lot of flooding that happened there, and during these floods, that bridge didn't overtop. So there was a good solution. I know there was a lot of question that was asked beforehand, but considering what happened the past 2 years, there was a good solution that happened there. So I would say as a province will where required, we will do those type of things. When it comes to the cleaning of the riverbeds, that's not necessarily a Department of Infrastructure mandate. It is more of the farm owners, and they, I would say, water associations, which has the EIA to clean those type of riverbeds. that does pose a big opportunity in job creation, which I think our minister is, I think, in discussion with DP of what they actually have to do there. Because as a department, you have to work with different departments to ensure that things does not occur again and again and again. But as a department, we can only stick within the road reserve. We can't go outside the fence line. That's not our property, and it's from a management perspective. From what we always done was what was within the road reserve. So if they start cleaning their riverbeds, it does allow for, I would say, free flow of water. Because if you don't clean your riverbeds, you get the trees and the silt that will build up. And if you block the culvert, it just forces more water to climb, and then you're going to push the road and it's going to go. So those type of things, as a department, we will require other sections to actually do their maintenance in order for us to actually fix our road network, and also the backlog of maintenance that we must still achieve. And then my last thing is, look, ordinary people, I would say, my last thing is, like, during floods happen, but ordinary people do exceptional things during this part. As a department, yes, it does require to work overtime, but it's people that are trying to make an effort to ensure that the roads are safe. Because if you don't act immediately, roads that are washed away could cause, I would say, severe accidents. So that was just one of the things that I want to add in the last part. It's, you have to be proactive. Yes, we've learned through the process that you must have systems in place, and if something happens, we have the protocols to send out the people to make roads safe. And that's the end of my presentation.
That's it. Half an hour presentation, and that's our day. Members, fire away. Questions? Let's start with that side of Honorable Farmer.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll just focus a little bit on Citrusdal because it's a bit closer to home from where I am. You make mention of 4 access roads to Citrusdal. One is on private land. The Algeria one is totally undrivable, so poor piece of gravel road. And the one coming from Ceres is not that good also. It's also a gravel road. So the only access really to that town is this one, the R303. And it's about what, 2.5 kilometers from the N7 in there. And each year that happens, that community is cut off from the rest of the world, of the rest of us. And my first grandson, his mother's family is from there, and I am afraid over winter time, when they want to go visit, they won't be able to come out. And then they'll have to stay there for an excess period of time. I can understand the way the road was fixed the first time, 2023, because how this happened was unexpected. But then it happened again this year. And it seems, and that's where my question comes in, it seems as if the fixing of the road is done the same way as it was done last year, which means next year it will be broken through again, because we will just see a continuance of more rain and more rain and more rain, as you alluded to, global warming becoming a serious issue. So my question is, how do you plan to fix that road on a more permanent basis? Because those entities you refer to that should maintain further upstream where the real problem starts, they don't have the resources to properly take care of that situation there. So the water will come down again and it will take this road again. And be as the way it is fixed now anyway. So what plans, or is there anything in the pipeline that you plan for long term for that road, or what's happening? Because there's serious issues when that community is cut off. The economy of that town is greatly dependent on that road. The people's living conditions is dependent on that road. So that's a pretty serious issue that needs to be prioritized, I think, by the department.
Okay, so for the second, I would say in the second rehabilitation and fixing of the roads, here we are putting in more erosion protection against the road, and we also increasing what we're putting in. There was one culvert. There's another culvert being installed in the, I would say, in this pipe culvert being installed in the repair works of I would say Main Road 310. So they have looked at the studies. They're putting in more erosion protection to protect the, I would say, the road prism, and they're putting in another culvert to allow for water to go through, I would say, downstream. So that's what we it's not similar to what we done last year, where we just put the rock fill and made sure that we had a surface over the road. Now we're actually putting in gabions and erosion protection to prevent this type of thing happening again, and a culvert. So that was the design. I would say our design team done the analysis, and that was the proposal for Main Road 310. So it's and the longer term.
Do you have any plans?
Longer term, I am aware, and I know the Klein William Dam is raising, and there's certain road networks that has to be lifted. So that's still in, I would want to say, concept and viability stage. Don't have all the details yet of what the long-term plan is for when the dam wall is being raised. So there is work in the pipeline, but that we still fine-tuning on what must happen.
The dam wall won't have an issue there because
Honourable, sorry, Honourable Farmer, let's not have a conversation. Question asked, question answered. There's other members also waiting to ask questions. So we will do a second round, so you can formulate your next questions so long, and then we'll get back to you if there's time. Thank you very much, Honourable Gericke. Sorry.
Morning, Chair, morning, members. Ndobe Kumbingele is the Secretary to Leader of Government Business. Just to add on to Anzi's answer here in terms of the future and permanent solution to the road. So just in August, Minister Simmers visited the site and he engaged the municipality there. In terms of that permanent solution, the culvert that Anzi is referring to, the design of it is considered to handle a 20-year design, flood design. So that's just completely, as you said, it's a different approach to what we did last year. And that culvert that's being built is to allow for a flow of 59 cubic meters of water. And also the structure will include 2 in-suit concrete cells that is each about 3.6 meters. So that is to allow for more flow. And then in addition to that, the minister and the HOD are in the process of finalizing the draft of a transversal maintenance plan of the river that Anzi was referring to. because part of that we own the road, but however there's other parties that are involved in that river stream. So that includes the Department of Agriculture. So that will be provincial and national, as well as the water and sanitation department. So that maintenance plan is one that is transversal, and we're just waiting on an update when the final submission will be made on that for that permanent solution. Though that includes the maintenance of those farm pieces along the riverbed. Because what happened is that the farmers each have to apply for permits in order to maintain their sections, and the water and sanitation department had played their part. However, sometimes one or two of the farmers in the stream had pleaded poverty because maintaining needed it's something that comes at a cost. So part of that maintenance plan is a way to mitigate and also to assist the farmers as well, because it's no point fixing and installing these new culverts, whereas the maintenance will not be taking place moving on to the future due to affordability and other maintenance issues.
Thank you. Mr. Gericke.
Thank you, Chair. No, I thought, Mr. November, it was a great question by Honorable Farmer, because it speaks to the quality of the development of infrastructure. And it brings me to this point where I want to ask I know that there's a handful of service providers in your province, and there's a repute use of those service providers time after time after time. The provincial government is using the same service providers, whether it be through the tender process or what have you, but there's just a basket full of them. So the importance of this statement or question is that if you use the same people over and over, we don't discredit the work that they do, but we are in a flood-prone area. For many of the towns here around, I recall 2 years ago, I think, there's a huge, massive dam around on your way to Stellenbosch there, and the entire towns were cut off. We had to take side or thoroughways. So is the time not arrived that we look at service providers that bring some other strategic infrastructure development to the fore that will prevent the collapse of infrastructure and that won't repeat the same, regardless of the formula or method that you've explained? There was a repeat of this again. So this is what we try to get at, that there's not a constant repeat of the collapse of infrastructure. And then secondly, I just want to know, because it's only those contractors that you have in your basket, they benefit from that economy, and that economy being billions of rands, which is unfair towards your other entry-level guys that want to come in and want to do something new. And then the second point that I want to latch on to that is, please explain to me. I know I served on the district municipality in the Garden Routes, and I know we had fights and fights and fights about this. The infrastructure development money is allocated to the municipality. In other words, it appears on your budget, but you don't have a say on that budget because the provincial government is doing the tenders and is allocating the work. And I'm speaking from a position of authority when I say this. Yes. Let's say you're giving the district municipality 500 million rand. Then the 500 million rand will mainly be allocated by a provincial process. It's not going through your district municipal supply chain processes. And that's something that we've labored for many years. And at the time, they were going to put up some kind of appointment with the premiers, with the relevant ministers and so on. But it never came down because it was a political question and a political engagement which they were running away from. So I want to have an answer on that. You know, you will have the budget, but you don't have a say over the budget. The supply chain process is governed by the provincial government and not by the local district council. I'm going to stop there for now, but there's huge concern about that. And also unfinished projects. For instance, in your province, I know that we've concentrated this week only on projects in the metro, but there are other projects that are unfinished for many years now. The one being close to your airport in George on the N2, standing there for approximately 5 years unfinished. And there's a massive danger to road users there. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Kirika. Sorry, your name's Anzi, hey? It's no surname. November. Mr. November, you're allowed to answer, but you don't have to answer the questions relating to political interference or whatever Mr. Kirika was alluding to.
Sir, just on a point of order, I am not talking about political interference. I am talking about an administrative process. A supply chain process is always an administrative process. There were going to be political engagements as to why the budget is governed by the province and not by the local municipality. That's the point, Mr. November. Thank you.
Okay, when it comes to service providers, and you guys made mention to contractors, it's basically an open tender, so we follow the process in terms of appointing, put it out to tender, and it will go through I would say, the protocol of bid adjudication, I would say tender evaluation, and that's how we appoint. So that is purely a supply chain management function. I'm not necessarily involved in that function, so that's how we do when it comes to service providers. Yes, you gave mention on the district municipalities that assist the province. With that assistance, there is, I would want to say, money allocated for routine road maintenance, and that's based on the network that they must maintain for us. When it comes to the capital projects, we identify that from an asset management perspective. So we do the designs. We do the designs through our processes, and we will indicate this is a project that we would want you to fix on our behalf through that memorandum of agreement. I don't know all the ins and outs about how that process goes, but that's that's a co-sourcing model which they assisting the province to maintain the network. We will, just like any private contractor that we can, or implementation that we're going to fix the road, we still have to prioritize it to our needs on the entire road network. So that's when we, as a province, because we're giving they assisting us maintaining it, we also have to give direction of where we want the maintenance to be. So that's just the answer of the direction of that. Yeah.
I think Mr. Kirika had another question about the service providers. He said, is there a possibility to use different service providers who are perhaps specifically able to deal with situations like this?
Like, I think if it's different service providers from a contractual perspective, if they're going to tender for work, and yes, we have to follow the 80-20 principle of provincial points, but I would say preferential points. If they're going to apply for it, then most likely there will be different ones that come up. I know you gave mention on Malgat and the N2. We went with the lowest. We terminated that first one. I think there was either 2 or 3 termination contracts, and now we went to I think it's the 4th one now that it was actually to do the repair work. So that's the unfortunate. The contractors all became liquidated and couldn't actually finish the work, and that unfortunately happened on that specific project.
Yes.
Thank you, Acting Chair, and let me welcome the presentation. I'm also driving on the N7, and Chair, what I find out is my experience is the best way for you to do oversight work is when nobody know you, nobody knows that you are coming, then you will experience what is going on. Um, the gentleman was talking about the different layers. And now I'm not an expert, but I don't see the different layers there at the specific project. He might know better. And then I'm also of the fact that if are we not going to save money because of this is a 20-year solution, flood solution. But I think if we maybe start building a new bridge from the start, with the next flood, we do not have so much money to spend. That's my feeling. They can correct me. So I'm also a little bit worried about the same contractors using every time. Can't we also try and look at the current upcoming subcontractors? Are they there? I don't know. But I visited that place or that part that they are busy with twice in a row. They don't know me. I was distracted also because if it's 9:30 in the morning and you lay on your back and you are sleeping, when will you complete the current project? So my advice would be that someone need to go there unannounced and go and see what's happening there. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. November.
Is this related to the Citrus Dal one? Okay, so just need to recollect now. You spoke about different contractors and subcontractors. I would want to say when it comes to tendering workout, they will either have a specific grading that you have to meet, and that we do on, I would say, when tendering out the work, depending on the type of work, we'll have a set of grading, CIDB grading that they must qualify for in order to do the work. In the case of Citrus Dal, this has been done by, I would want, Central Karoo Municipality. They assisting the province. It's so they as an implementing agent for us to fix and repair the specific portion of road. So it's not necessarily the private contractor, but it's the center. That's sorry, West Coast District Municipality, wrong district municipality. West Coast District Municipality that is assisting the department in repairing this, I would say, this section of road. And it's my understanding that they do have a subcontractor that is assisting them with some of the works in order to repair the specific road. So yes, it happened 2 years after each other. They are doing it again, but there's different scope of works that we're including this time around to ensure that, and like my colleague said, to ensure that this doesn't, or we're trying to circumvent that we're constructing the section and going to a partnership with the landowners to prevent this type of thing of happening again. When it comes to layer works, okay, so the different type of layer works, it's difficult to see on the eye because a soil is, from a public perspective, you will think it's the same thing, but from a quality, when you do different type of tests, everything will look brown as you go up. But what you do in pavement engineering, you start with the lowest quality from what we call a G7, G8, which is more the soils, and then you build up into a sub-base where you add cement, and a base which more granular. So it's your parent rock that you use is, I would say, it's in majority of the layers. So it's the strength increases as you put until you put the surface. So that's just from a layman's perspective. That's just the you from the eye, you will see just brown layers, but it's different layers that you actually have to put into the pipe.
We were questions we were busy with.
Going along on the right. 1, 2, 3.
Is it your turn now?
I want to ask.
Honourable Swart, you're very welcome.
Thank you and welcome back, Mr. Chair.
Apologies. Member, so you asked in terms of why don't we just build another bridge? In Azni's presentation, he had mentioned that from the 1.8 billion damage that we incurred during these floods, he mentioned that there was about 340 million that we received. Just need to clarify that 340 million was from provincial treasury, and it was not from national, even though that the disasters were declared national disasters. So to date, province has not received a cent. And that comes, and then we, as it also mentioned, we have our annual budget that we have. So now having to reshift things from certain projects that were that are in the MTIF. So just to touch on in terms of just having to build a new bridge and so forth in terms of the funding that's not there at the moment. And then in terms of the recurring the question around recycling of contractors, I'm just gonna, at the start of this quarter 3 that we're in a normal year, the province's supplier evidence bank, so which is now the supplier database. I'll just read these figures for the number of total suppliers that we have was at the time 9,099, and from these, I'll just the supplier categories. In line with our RDP goals, we have about, in terms of SMMEs, 7,540 of those is the supplier count, and which is about 83%. Those are active ones, and from that, 1,511 are actually women-owned, and then Black-owned is about 6,690. And then we also have about 521 which are youth-owned, and then people with disabilities account for about 53 of those contractors in our supplier database. So that's just in line responding to the question around recycling of suppliers. So that's the evidence bank of active and compliant suppliers that are on the provincial database that we source from. So it's not necessarily that we the department just look at specific suppliers, but we then also have to be noteworthy of the level of the contractor or skills and expertise that would be required for that particular project.
Chair, can I just ask for the number of the youth and the disability quickly? Thank you.
My apologies again. For the disability, it accounts for 53 on the database, and the youth is about 521.
Honourable Swart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I just wanted to refer to, because we were sitting in the first briefing session where the minister was here, and the minister told us everything about, how much money the province has spent on this flood, that was caused, the damage was caused by the floods, and we're still waiting on money that we've applied for from national. So everything has been done by our provincial government, and it's not fair for us, chairperson, for me to point fingers at the provincial budget and take the responsibility of maintaining the roads. Just input from my side. The other one is that all of us were referred to the Citrusdal flooding, but when I look at one of these pictures in the Citrusdal area, I think that's going to be impossible for the provincial government to come up, and this is happening in the past 6 months, not in the past 6 years that we had flooding in our province. This one of the Citrusdal area. If I look at this picture, a chairperson, it looks like the whole area, that is the flood, the presentation, what said what we need to know. The break in road and the immediate need is always access, and the river maintenance. That picture shows me that whole area. If you look at that area, the one part of the road that was broken, and 3 months from there, the other part was broken. That area looks like wetlands for me. And I think, as I look at, we will have to build a second Clanwilliam Dam wall height over that area. That is how severe these damages are, and the climate change that have an impact, and what we as province, need to do in this situations. So I can just acknowledge the work that the province has done in this very crucial time of flooding. And I really want to congratulate the province. That is all from my side, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Responses?
Thank you, members. We welcome it.
Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. November, you in the beginning, I just want to maybe summarize this, and then you can tell me if I've got this straight. You compared the process to that of maintaining a vehicle. So you drive a vehicle and you either pay for its service or you have a motor plan, but then something bigger happens that you're not covered for, and then you have to fix it. But the only added thing that the Western Cape has that you can't really compare to a vehicle is the fact that you have a changing weather pattern. And for now, if you have to fix a bridge, you do it in the best way that you can with whatever information you have. But in order for us to get ahead 20 years from now, you said you are busy doing the research to make sure that where possible, we can prevent these occurrences to happen. And that is indeed in process. Okay, thank you.
Quickly. I just want to, I don't know if it's been asked, I just wanted to inquire. So obviously you get grant funding from national government for the maintenance and building of roads and resurfacing and upkeep and everything. When there's a disaster and you have to go and spend money, for example, like Clarence Drive, 80 million rand, where does that money come from? It's obviously out of budget because you didn't plan for it. How do you fund those type of repairs when there's disasters?
That will come from our equitable share. So we will have this provincial road maintenance grant, which has certain conditions, and that is for routine road maintenance, periodic maintenance, and strengthening. They give very little for actually flood damage in that context, but anything that happens for Clarence Drive, that comes out of our own, I would say, finance. So we have equitable share, which is what. So our budget is split between provincial road maintenance grants and equitable share. That comes out of our own, I would say, own money to do our maintenance, and every other things that we planned for that year will actually be pushed out. So the project is pushed. Stuff that we planned for the year that we wanted to do is then pushed out out of the MTF of the following year, then that money will have to be used that we planned for that specific project to actually fix. That's our own equal share that we're using. So we got, yeah. So if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. So over the last 2 years, how much money has been spent on maintaining disaster damaged infrastructure, and have we received anything back from government with regards to that? So have we asked government, there's a disaster, we need to fix a road or a bridge, build a bridge or whatever, can you assist? Or is it we fund it ourselves?
So it has been, okay, so that has been funded ourselves. Look, from a disaster management perspective, we do collect the lists and then we forward that to, I would say, disaster management. But my understanding, we have not received anything to date. If like my colleague said, everything has been come from ourselves. I don't know the exact number what we spent. I will have to get that value for you.
So Chair, in the submission by MEC Bredel, through MEC Bredel's office in terms of the disaster allocation and administration for the damages, we have submitted. So in the case of a disaster, what usually happen on a day-to-day, we would issue updates in terms of the affected roads. We have road closures and so forth. And then once all of that has been collated and the assessments have been done, that then gets submitted to the disaster management team, which is headed up MEC Bredel. And so from the 2022 floods all the way, and particularly the last 18 months. So those have been submitted to National Treasury, and we have not received any form of assistance. The 300, as I mentioned earlier, the 340 million that we received for assistance came from Provincial Treasury and nothing outside of province. So nothing came from national as yet. This recent floods and damage disaster that we had about 6 weeks ago, that was declared a natural disaster within days. However, like the previous year and two disasters, there was not a single cent sent through. And I think this is something Minister Summers mentioned at the NCOP debate last week. So in terms of, as Anzi said, in terms of the reprioritization of the funds, so we have an MTF book. So all our projects are multiple year projects. So whatever is then set to be within that MTF book. So if it was meant to start in January 2025, and now we suddenly have a clearance drive, which is an economic hub or pulse for the province, we now have to reprioritize that from the MTF budget. And that then means 1 or 2 or even more projects will now be delayed and have to be shifted back further. So it has a ripple effect. The non financial support that the department is not receiving from national at the moment.
So there's no, can you quantify that amount? Because I recall the minister saying in the NCOP last week, it was like something like 1.8 to 1.9 billion rand that's been spent on maintenance of disaster-struck infrastructure the last 2 years. Repairs, yeah.
That's just to repair and get it back to the original standard, which it was prior to the disasters. So that's the amount of funding that we need for just getting back to where, and not even to improve.
Let's go again. Honourable Farmer, would you like to have a second bite?
Chair, not really. I would maybe just differ ever so slightly with Member Godsell, and maybe turn this into a question. I don't agree necessarily that we have changing weather patterns as such. I think we have more a situation where our patterns remain the same. It's still hot in summer and it's still cold in winter, but it went to the extremes. It's nowadays it's a bit hotter when it's hot, and it's colder when it's cold, and when it rains a lot more. So the pattern hasn't really that we now know. And I'm not a prophet or anything, but all of us can see that next year we will have more rain, because we this year have more than last year. We will have more next year. Through God's grace, maybe it will then be enough, but it doesn't seem to ever be enough rain falling. But my question is, doesn't that allow for us to plan a bit better and be proactive rather than reactive? Because we know this province will always be hit with disasters of some sort. Because the summer is coming, we will have fires again. The winter is next year coming, we will have flooding again. So I don't know if it's necessarily a question that can be answered.
I think the disaster management representative, Mr. Minis, we have I think in answer to the member's question regarding the disaster preparedness, because I think that's what you're getting at on the form, if I can clarify. Could you maybe just give us a quick briefing on our 15-year disaster management plan? Because I think that his question speaks to our disaster preparedness, and that plan informs that, I think.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's a provincial disaster management plan. I'm unfortunately from a city, so I wouldn't be able to elaborate on that plan. My apologies.
Yeah, it's a pity that we're not at the disaster management center this morning as we planned, because that's a very good question. And I think we are one of the only provinces in the country that has a 15-year disaster management plan that deals with severe droughts, fires, floods, etc., and how we respond to those. But you're welcome to add if you want to from the provincial side.
I'll try. Look, so I know from a departmental perspective, we have a person on the joint, the JOC, that forms part of the disaster management team. Through that processes, we will get notifications of when floods and fires might occur, and that helps us in terms of our preparedness. What we've learned so far through the floods, we will know what hotspots are there of where it happens on a recurring basis, and we will have to take that into account when we do our maintenance on our entire road network. So one have to be cognizant of that and be aware and I would say, plan for that. It won't happen immediately because you have a constrained budget, so it will happen over time in actually preparing it.
Honorable Gericke?
Thank you, Chairperson. Colleagues, let me start by saying the following. Our work is oversight. We are not, even though some of us may be qualified, we are not professionals here. So we cannot substitute your work or your office. Let's understand that. And therefore, we are seeking clarity on certain issues so that we can report to our constituencies also. Now, the other thing is, Chairperson, we are also not in contestation to say who's best and who's not best and who's performing well and who's not. No. That is not. We are not also refuting or negating what you say. We don't even try to create some kind of suspicion, just for clarity's sake. So I come back to the initial question that I've asked, because I am perturbed by the economy, and I'm open for attack. I don't care. I'm perturbed about this economy. On your roads, on your infrastructure, it's a massive budget. And by the looks of it, we don't see transformation in that economy. And we don't see the diversification. I note what the supply chain figures that you've mentioned here, the 9,099 suppliers, the 7,500 SMMEs, and I note that. But I also know that as much as we have these huge numbers, and many of these contractors are called in occasionally, as and when projects come up. But you will always see, almost on a permanent basis, the same contractors, massive commercial contractors, all the time, ignoring or refusing to work with your smaller contractors and taking hands in terms of sharing that economy. Now, this is not an accusation. This is a reality. This is no indictment against anyone. So from our perspective, from the EFF's perspective, we say we must broaden the scope of the economy specifically when it comes to bigger budgets, sir. And we must start to think out of the box to say, how can we include other people that are not included here? And how can we assist other people to maybe move on to a higher grading whilst they are in our service? How can we develop their skill? How can they graduate to the next level so that we say in the Western Cape, yes, all the people share in the wealth of this economy? That is the main point of concern. You cannot have a situation, and I know it was said earlier on, don't answer political questions. This is essentially a political argument. You cannot be 30 years in a so-called democracy and it's only a certain section of the community that benefits. Whether that's black or whether that's white or whether it's who, it's not fair. It is not fair. So the call from our side is to look deeper into this situation, to assist. It's a big economy, and then let us spread the wealth amongst our people.
Honourable Gericke, thank you for your statement. Didn't hear too many questions in there to the administration. That's fine. He made a statement. You don't have to respond to a political statement. We're here to do oversight, and specifically on the topic of the effect of disasters on our infrastructure. Thank you. Honourable Baines.
Chairperson, sorry, I don't want to put up an argument in front of officials, but you must be fair. Although it's a statement, I've posted many questions in the statement. If you've listened carefully to me, I expressed concern about the reluctance to share in the wealth of this economy. It's a huge economy. And if these officials cannot answer, let them tell me or the House or the floor to say, we won't answer, we cannot answer. Then we have it on record, sir. But I don't think it's right of you to intervene and to say officials mustn't answer. Let them say, with all due respect, let them say they are unable, but they will come back or they won't be able to answer. We must write to the Premier or whatever. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Gericke. Would you like to respond to that statement that was made?
Officially, I can't answer that question.
Honourable Gericke, just to remind you that this is a parliamentary session. I am chairing this meeting. Normal parliamentary committee rules will be applicable here. And I just want to remind you that you haven't partaken on day 1 and day 2 of this provincial week. You are now here today for the first time. And we have made a ruling right in the beginning at our first site meeting that we will not engage any political aspects with the officials. We will stick to the topic of the week. And specifically, I'll just remind you again, the influence for today, the influence of of disasters on our infrastructure. And I think they're prepared to come and answer questions on that. And let's stick to the topic if we don't mind. Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, you were, well, respectfully, you were out of the chamber when I submitted the question. This question flows out of the first answer that was given. Number one. Number two, the fact that I wasn't here the other days, I have sent you a medical certificate. It's not up for discussion here. And you cannot diminish my presence here because I wasn't here for the other day.
Can I ask that we
Thank
move
you.
on, Honourable Baines?
Thank you, Chairperson. I think my concerns are covered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you like to have a second bite, Honourable Swart?
I'm covered, thanks.
Thank you very much, Honourable
Yes.
Provincial.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about the riverbeds and the Water Association. So, I mean, some organizations would follow the whole of society approach, and it basically entails that, you know, regardless of whether you are in government or whether you are a citizen, or that everybody work together to make South Africa a better place. And I get the sense that although all farmers, for instance, who live along these rivers must play their part, but then there was a comment about some of them not being able to, perhaps. Could you just maybe clarify that a little bit, and to see whether there's any way in which the government can then kind of assist before they are the ones who then lead to the clogging of the waterbeds?
Thank you, Member Kotse. So just part of the disaster season, one good example in terms of the whole of society approach, where it worked out perfectly, was the McGregor town, where we had a section in the lead up of the bridge that washed away, and that meant that that town was disconnected from its nearest hub, which was to Robertson. So the farmers there came on board, and they assisted the department with the movement of some of the material that was required to actually assist in the construction work of that access pass. So that those relationships do exist. And then in terms of the citrus dal matters, so as Andy mentioned, so the flow it's from upstream, the damage. So one of the farmers on the upstream side, he had submitted in writing that he was unable to actually proceed with the maintenance. This is then how Minister Simmers then came up at what led him to drafting this new transversal maintenance plan to try and mitigate matters where farmers won't be able to afford to maintain their part, and then this will then somehow seem to vilify them by the rest of the community. That's also what you don't want to do as a government. So part of the maintenance plan is to try and find mitigating ways of meeting the commercial farmers halfway, and see how is it that they can be assisted in maintaining this riverbed moving forward from here, and not just leaving it to individuals to do it on their own. Because essentially what then does happen is that we build what is ours, but then it will mean that in future we're still going to need to rebuild what is ours, because it will be collateral damage to whatever else is not being maintained.
I see we've got Member Basil Petrus online. Would you like to ask a question, Member Petrus? No? Good. Okay. Can't hear. I think you might be muted, Member Petrus. Yeah, your sound is not coming through on our side. I can see you trying to talk, but we can't hear you. Yeah, no, it's not coming through. Okay, no, so I'm sorry, but there must be a technical issue. We can't hear you on this side. Members, thank you very much for your time. I'd like to thank the department for the briefing this morning and for your time. Certainly have your work cut out for you in the Western Cape with our disasters, and we appreciate your briefing this morning. Members, thank you for your presence. You're welcome to now, we're going to adjourn the meeting, and you're welcome to go for lunch at 12 o'clock. And then please just keep an eye on our WhatsApp group. The content advisors are now busy as we speak, putting together a brief for us that summarizes the whole week. And then we will then convene as soon as they're done with that, because they've got to take this information and add it to the brief. So the program says 2:30 till 4 o'clock. I'm going to try and ask them to make it earlier so that we miss the afternoon traffic out. So just please keep an eye on your WhatsApp, on the WhatsApp group. I'll let you know as soon as they're ready, and we meet back here. Is it the program? Sure. You can have this one. Okay, thank you. So meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.